terrifying demonic spirits behind narcissists. What they don't want you to know. Alright, lean in, this isn't gonna be another soft, feel-good talk wrapped in gentle metaphors and sugar-coated advice. What we're about to step into is raw. It's unfiltered. And if you're ready to hear the truth, it might just shake something loose in you. Because, let's be honest, this world we live in, it's not just about physical bodies, daily routines and surface-level psychology. There's more moving beneath the surface than most people are willing to see. Energy, frequency, invisible forces that shape behavior, influence emotions, and twist reality in ways science hasn't fully named yet. And when you look closely at the narcissist, the one with the hypnotic charm, the cold detachment, the way they drain every ounce of peace from the room like a slow, silent vampire, you start to realize something deeper is at play. This isn't just about a damaged ego. It's not just about childhood trauma or emotional immaturity. There's something else operating behind those eyes. Because when someone lies with such ease, it feels like truth. When they rewrite reality so completely that you question your own mind, when they feed off your pain, your confusion, your love, just to feel alive, something fundamental has shifted. This isn't just dysfunction. This is a soul that's been hollowed out, and where there's emptiness, something else moves in. We're not talking about cartoonish demons or horror movie possession. This isn't about exorcisms or holy water. We're talking about something far more subtle, low-vibration entities, dark energetic attachments, or call them what you will, forces that thrive on fear, control, and suffering. And they find their perfect host in the narcissist. Because the narcissist is already open. Their soul, fractured by shame, disconnected from empathy, built on illusion and self-worship, becomes a doorway, a welcome mat, a feeding ground. And once these forces take root, they amplify everything. Manipulation becomes effortless, cruelty feels justified, and the need to dominate becomes insatiable. They don't just hurt you to feel powerful, they hurt you because it feeds them. And not just emotionally, energetically, spiritually. These beings, call them shadows, attachments, or parasitic consciousness, don't care about love, growth, or healing. They thrive on chaos, on broken trust, on the slow erosion of your spirit. And the narcissist, they become the perfect vessel, the human mask that hides the hunger beneath. And here's the worst part. They don't want you to see it. They want you confused. They want you doubting yourself. They want you trapped in their web, pouring your light into their darkness, thinking it's love. But tonight, we're pulling back the veil. This isn't just about understanding narcissism from a psychological standpoint. This is about waking up to the spiritual warfare that's been happening in silence, through relationships, families, workplaces, and even spiritual communities. It's about seeing that some people aren't just toxic, they're occupied. And the most powerful thing you can do is stop feeding the cycle. Because every time you react in fear, every time you beg for closure, every time you pour your energy into trying to fix them, you're giving fuel to something that should never have access to your light. So this is your wake-up call. Your invitation to see beyond the surface, to stop blaming yourself, to stop trying to reason with the unreasonable, and most importantly, to learn how to cut the cord, how to shield your energy, how to reclaim your soul, because you were never meant to be a battery for someone else's darkness. You were meant to shine, and no amount of manipulation, guilt, or spiritual warfare will ever change that. So take your power back, step into your truth, and walk away light and tact. Let's get into it. Most people still walk around thinking narcissists are just hurt kids in adult bodies, damaged goods, shaped by a messy childhood, or a few emotional beatdowns. And yeah, sure, trauma leaves scars, but let's not sugarcoat it. That ain't the whole story. Not by a long shot. Because once you strip away the excuses, once you stop trying to fix them like a broken toy, you start to see the truth, and it's darker than you think. These narcissists, they're not just emotionally stunted or struggling with mental health. They've turned into living, breathing conduits for something foul, a parasite that doesn't show up on any therapist's clipboard. We're talking energies so twisted, so calculated, They don't just feed off pain, they engineer it. Ever notice how they always know exactly where to hit? The perfect word. The perfect look. Like they've got some sixth sense for destruction. That ain't intuition, that's a tether. Something spiritual, something ancient. They're being fed intel by something that's been studying human weakness for centuries. All those old spiritual texts? The ones that talk about shadowy entities, demons, dark spirits that thrive on suffering. They weren't fairy tales. They were warnings. These entities don't want your money. They want your energy, your peace, your love. And the narcissist, that's the perfect delivery system. Why? Because they're hollowed out, emotionally gutted. That void, that's what the darkness crawls into. It hooks into their frequency, starts whispering in their ear, and suddenly the narcissist isn't just toxic, they're a weapon. And here's the worst part. They don't even know it. But you're about to. And here's where it gets even more disturbing. Because once the narcissist opens that door, once they hand over the keys with their pride, their obsession with control, their total lack of self-awareness, it's not just them driving anymore. Something else takes the wheel. The narcissist's need for constant validation, that gnawing hunger to be worshipped, feared, or admired, that's the bait. That's how the darkness slithers in through ego wide open like an unlocked front door in a bad neighborhood. And once it's in, it doesn't just whisper anymore, it takes over. This ain't just a wounded person throwing tantrums. This is spiritual possession with a smile. They mimic love like an actor on stage, say the right words, give the right look, but it's all theater. Behind the mask, a cold, empty void, a soul that's either asleep or sold. And what fills that void? Chaos. They don't build relationships, they trap people in them. Like a spider wrapping up dinner in silk, slowly draining it dry while it still twitches. Every kind word, every passionate kiss, every moment of connection, a setup, not to love, but to consume. Because narcissists don't feel love, they feed on it. And not the good, steady, peaceful kind. No, they want your highs and lows. Your outbursts, your breakdowns, your tears at 3 a.m. when you're questioning your worth and wondering if you're the crazy one. That emotional chaos, that's their buffet. Victims walk away from these relationships, not just heartbroken, but spiritually hollowed out. And that's not poetic language, that's real. Ask anyone who's escaped a narcissist, they'll tell you it felt like something was feeding on their soul, like a piece of them was taken. Because it was. And let's talk about the gaslighting. The psychological smoke and mirrors they use like seasoned magicians. They twist your reality until you can't tell what's real and what's been planted. You start to doubt your own memory, your instincts, even your sanity. That's not just manipulation. That's spiritual sabotage. That's evil. Playing chess while you're stuck trying to figure out why the board keeps flipping. And perhaps the most damning sign of all? The resistance to change. While most people screw up, feel guilt, try to grow, the narcissist doubles down. Always. Like they're allergic to growth, repelled by the idea of looking inward. Because the second they do, the illusion shatters. The mask slips. The demon gets exposed. But they won't let that happen. Because exposure kills the game. And this game? It's spiritual warfare wrapped in human skin. Now we're deep in the belly of the beast, and it's time to call it like it is. At this point, it's obvious. We're not just talking about emotionally immature people throwing tantrums. No, this is something far more sinister. Narcissists don't just resist growth. It's like there's something inside them that violently rejects it, like personal growth is poison, and truth is holy water. Try to shine a light on their darkness and watch them writhe. That's not normal resistance. That's spiritual recoil. Anyone who's locked eyes with one of these empty vessels knows the feeling. That chill. That gut punch awareness. That you're not just dealing with a difficult person. You're standing face to face with something off. Unnatural. A hollow stare behind the smile. A presence that sucks the air out of the room. And when they strike, it's never random. It's surgical. As if something inside them knows exactly where to cut the deepest. Why? Because it does. These entities don't want to just hurt you. They want to bind you. They want to tether their meal to the table. And that's what makes escaping them so damn hard. This isn't just emotional manipulation. It's energetic slavery. They form invisible threads, spiritual cords, psychic leashes that stay wrapped around your soul even after you walk away. They call it trauma bonding in psychology. But this goes deeper. It's spiritual binding. It's soul entanglement. And here's the real kicker. These narcissists, they can smell the light in you, like blood in the water to a shark. They zero in on the kind, the giving, the sensitive ones, the ones with empathy pouring out of their skin, because that light, that's what they're after. That's what they're built to destroy. But you've got to understand, it's not personal. It's strategic. The darkness in them is drawn to the light in you like a moth to flame. Not to admire it, but to snuff it out. That's the mission. Drain it, dim it, and if possible, turn it against itself. So what do? You raise your frequency. You protect your energy like it's sacred. Because it is. This ain't just some woo-woo talk. It's how reality works. Every emotion, every thought, every vibe you send out is a signal. And dark energy? It can't latch onto what it doesn't resonate with. Raise your vibration, and you become unreachable. Quantum physics backs this up. Everything is energy, thoughts, emotions, intentions, all of it. When you operate in love, gratitude, clarity, you rise above the reach of these parasites. But sit too long in fear and confusion, in self-doubt, that's when they find a way in. Understanding this is how you cut the cord, not just from the narcissist, but from the thing pulling their strings. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the heart of it now. We're past the surface, beyond the mask, and staring into the abyss that fuels it all. Narcissists, plain and simple, are anchored in the sludge of low vibration. They live there, thrive there. It's their natural habitat. Control, deceit, arrogance, emotional violence. All of it keeps them locked into a frequency that most people instinctively avoid, but for them, it's home. And the chaos they stir up around them, the confusion, the despair, the gut-wrenching self-doubt, that's not just fallout, that's fuel, that's the whole point. Every fight they start, every lie they twist, every tear they provoke. It's not random, it's ritual. It generates energy, dark energy, and they feed off it like parasites with no remorse. But here's where it gets even deeper. They're not the only ones eating. There's something else behind the curtain. Unseen, unspoken, ancient entities, low-frequency beings that exist to destroy, to divide, to dominate. Not the kind you read about in bedtime stories. The kind you feel in the pit of your stomach when you walk into a room and suddenly can't breathe. The kind that slither in through hate, through manipulation, through unchecked ego. And narcissists? They're the perfect welcome mat. See, these dark energies don't just hang around for fun. They're strategic. They seek out certain traits like bloodhounds, deceit, cruelty, entitlement. Narcissists light up on their radar like a flare in the night. They're the ideal hosts, consumed with themselves, cut off from empathy, hungry for power, hollow enough to be filled. That's why their presence hits like a punch to the chest. People say it all the time. The energy changed when they walked in. That's not in your head. That's the ripple effect of corrupted frequency entering the space. It hits your nervous system before your mind can process it. And when the narcissist feels threatened, when they lose control, get exposed, or their fantasy starts to crumble, that's when it gets visceral. Sudden rage, voice dropping, eyes that don't even feel human anymore. Victims often describe it like watching something else step forward, something that isn't the person they thought they knew. That's not exaggeration, that's manifestation. Because in those moments, the mask drops, and what's behind it takes center stage. The full force of the entity that's been whispering from the shadows comes to the front. You're not just looking at a narcissist anymore, you're looking at the thing riding them. And all the mind games, the love bombing, the devaluation, the whiplash of fake intimacy, followed by emotional gut punches, it's all part of the system. It keeps the victim spinning in emotional instability, which creates the perfect energetic storm, like a broken circuit sparking over and over again. The narcissist drains it. The attached entities feast on it. Because suffering isn't just a side effect, it's the main course. And whether the narcissist realizes it or not, they're serving it up hot, willingly, repeatedly. They've become conduits, walking, talking power stations for the darkest forces this realm has to offer. By now you've seen the pattern. The way narcissists operate isn't just erratic behavior, it's ritual, a dark, deliberate sequence of manipulation and energy siphoning that plays out like a blueprint written by something far more malevolent than human ego. See, most people hit rock bottom, face their demons, and start climbing back. They reflect, they evolve, they heal. But narcissists, they hit bottom and start digging. There's no self-reflection, no accountability, no evolution. Why? Because real healing would disconnect them from the dark lifeline that keeps them charged. Those entities, the low-vibe leeches feeding on the wreckage, don't want healing. Healing severs the cord. Self-awareness breaks the spell. So these dark forces whisper, distort, and resist. They twist the narcissist's mind so they project every flaw, every mistake onto you. And the narcissist buys it hook, line, and soul. That's why change never comes. It can't, because if they changed, they'd have to face themselves. And what's inside? It's not just pain, it's possession. Now when survivors finally claw their way out of these soul-shredding entanglements, something incredible happens. They don't just feel better, they feel lighter, like a fog finally lifts, like they can breathe again. That's not poetic, that's energetic realignment. Your frequency shifts once you cut ties with that parasitic loop, but the longer you're wrapped in it, the more it drags you down. That's why so many victims report brain fog, emotional numbness, unexplained exhaustion, even physical illness. It's not in your head, it's in your field. Because spiritual warfare is real. It's happening every damn day. And it's not thunder and brimstone. It's subtle. It's strategic. It creeps in through manipulation, fear, confusion, isolation. Narcissists aren't just tools of destruction. They're conduits for it. They're the hands and mouths of something darker. And whether they realize it or not, they're on assignment. Their tactics: ancient, love bomb, devalue, discard, repeat. It's like clockwork. And the deception, that's the real kicker. Because they don't show up with horns and a tail. No, they show up glowing, charming, magnetic, spiritually awake, maybe even talking about healing and light. But it's bait, smoke and mirrors. Once you're hooked, the real game begins. That's when the mask slips. That's when the gaslighting starts. The confusion, the subtle digs, the flickers of rage. Until suddenly, you're standing in a relationship where you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And that's not accidental. That's intentional. It's designed to break you, to sever your connection to your intuition, your people, your inner power. Because isolation makes you easier to feed on, easier to manipulate, easier to keep down. They don't just hurt you, they hollow you. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're deep in the ritual, cycling through emotional highs and crushing lows, like a roller coaster built in hell. The love bombing floods your system with false light. The devaluation chips away at your soul. The betrayal keeps you trapped, hoping the mask will come back. But the mask was never real. This isn't just abuse. This is spiritual sabotage. A soul-level assault, dressed in the skin of a relationship. And unless you see it, unless you name it, you stay stuck in the loop, bleeding energy, questioning your worth, wondering if it was all your fault. It wasn't. You were targeted for your light. And now we arrive at the last act in this twisted ritual, the discard. It's not just a breakup, it's a detonation. 1 minute, you're chasing scraps of affection, begging for clarity, trying to make sense of the chaos. And the next, you're left in emotional rubble, staring at silence, where there used to be sweet lies. But this is exactly how the cycle ends. Because the discard isn't just about rejection, it's about destruction. It's the final stage in a spiritual hit job, designed to leave the victim hollowed out, questioning their reality, and desperate for answers that will never come. And that emptiness victims describe afterward, that ache in the chest, that fog in the mind, that soul-deep exhaustion that doesn't fade with sleep or time, that's not just heartbreak, that's the echo of something taken, something sacred, something spiritual. What you're feeling isn't all yours. It's what they left behind. An energetic imprint, a residue of the entity that worked through them. Because this was never just psychological torment. It was an attachment, a spiritual hook, buried deep in your energy field, designed to keep you tethered. Even after they're gone, the pull remains, like chains on the soul. Fear, self-doubt, shame. Those aren't coincidences. That's spiritual bondage. And here's the kicker. The narcissist needs to keep you in that state. Because truth is their kryptonite. The moment you see through the mask, the game starts to fall apart. That's why they smear. That's why they gaslight. That's why they turn mutual friends into flying monkeys and rewrite history like they've got a script in their back pocket. Because their power depends on illusion, on deception, on darkness. And darkness can't survive in the light. So when you start speaking truth, when you shine that spiritual flashlight into their lair of lies, you'll see it. The flinch, the rage, the sudden shift, like something else just took over their face, that hollow stare, that unnatural energy. Victims have seen it, felt it, and they all say the same thing. It didn't feel human anymore. Because in those moments, it isn't. That rage, that's not just emotional immaturity. That's spiritual infestation. You're not arguing with a personality anymore. You're standing in front of something that hates the light you carry. And healing? Real transformation? Forget it. Narcissists don't grow. They rot. They decay from the inside out, repeating the same cycle until they become completely consumed by what's been feeding on them all along. It's not just resistance to growth, it's spiritual stagnation. They are frozen in a loop of destruction, chained to the very forces that whisper in their ear and wear their skin. This is why narcissistic abuse leaves wounds that bleed long after the relationship ends. It wasn't just your heart they were after, it was your soul. But here's the truth they can't stand. The one thing they'll never be able to twist, bury, or destroy. You can heal. Because unlike them, you still have light. You still have access to truth, to clarity, to freedom. But only if you stop treating this like regular abuse. This was spiritual warfare. And now, it's time to reclaim your energy, your power, your life. And that begins with one brutal, beautiful act. Cut the cord. So here it is, the last truth they don't want you to hear. Because once you see the real war, you can't unsee it. Narcissistic abuse was never just about drama, heartbreak, or confusion. It was a full-blown, spiritual ambush. And the battlefield wasn't out there. It was inside you, inside your energy, your spirit, your soul. The narcissist wasn't just a toxic person. They were a carrier, a vessel, a walking shadow with charm for bait, sent to pull you into a loop where your light dims, your intuition dulls, and your spirit forgets how to stand tall. That cycle of being drained, confused, and discarded, that wasn't random. That was design. And unless you cut the energetic cords, the real cords, they'll keep showing up, maybe in a new face, a new smile, but the same damn darkness. Because once your frequency drops, once your energy gets tangled in fear, shame, and spiritual exhaustion, you're a blinking target for more of the same. That's how the darkness works. It hunts the weakened. It thrives on repetition, on spiritual amnesia, on people forgetting who the hell they are. But here's the miracle buried in all this mess. You can remember. You can rise. You can reclaim every ounce of what was stolen. Not just by blocking a phone number or walking out the door. That's part of it. But the real healing, the real liberation, that's spiritual. That's energetic. That's intentional. You've got to clear it. Those cords? Those invisible hooks that keep pulling you back, even when your logic screams run? They've got to be severed. Not with scissors, but with truth, clarity, and sacred fire. Through breathwork, through prayer, through ritual, through stillness and reconnection with the parts of yourself that the narcissist tried to kill off. And then you rebuild. You raise your frequency, like your life depends on it. Because it does. Ground yourself. Touch the earth. Call back your energy. Journal your truth until the fog lifts. Sit in silence until your own voice is louder than theirs. The narcissist wants you weak. The entities that rode them want you confused. But you've got access to light they can't touch if you guard it. This isn't just healing, it's rebirth. Not just survival, but spiritual reclamation. So let this be the moment you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start declaring, "No more." No more energy leaks. No more chasing closure. No more lowering your frequency to understand darkness. Let them rot in their loops. You've got better places to be. Brighter spaces to walk into, stronger energy to anchor. Because the forces of darkness may be relentless, but they're also cowards. And when faced with real light, they run. You are not broken. You are not too far gone. You are not powerless. You are a force of divine energy. So rise, reconnect, cut the damn cord, and never look back. The war is real, but so is your victory.